Hey friends, welcome. I'm Chris. I'm with Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. And today what I have in mind today is a 60-minute Yin-Yang yoga experience. Now, what does that mean exactly? Roughly the first 35 minutes of the practice will be formatted in a vinyasa flow sequence. So it'll be movement in tandem with the breath. The movements will be sort of linked together in between sets with a common series of movements that we call sun salutations. And then the last 25 minutes or so of the practice, what we're going to do is we'll have static mat-based poses on the ground, right? So the physical anatomical theme for the class today is going to be the hip complex. So the hips, as you know, are foundationally important to human movement. When I was taking lessons to become a rock climber, when I was working with a private guide, every time I got stuck with my feet, my guide I'd be looking for different handholds and thinking if I just move my upper body a little bit higher up, my guide would say, it's not your hands, Chris, it's your hips. You got to do something with your feet to move your hips, change things for yourself with your hips. I took Latin dance lessons for a year and a half, salsa and bachata. Hips were most important. When I trained and competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for years, every time I got stuck in Jiu-Jitsu, my professor would scream at me in competition, hips, hips, hips. So the hips are so important to human movement. Now, there are 6 basic movement patterns of the hips that I wanted to talk through. We're going to try to hit all of these today. And the first is hip flexion. So you might think of this as the action of drawing the knee toward the shoulder, right? So this is hip flexion. The second is extension, stepping the leg back behind you. I'm just going to change my orientation for a moment. So one example today is a crescent warrior. I have hip flexion, slight hip flexion in my left hip, but I have hip extension in my right hip. AD adduction, the action of drawing the hips together, is a third range of movement. Pressing them away, AB abduction, hip abduction. And then we have lateral rotation, where the ankle comes across the center line of your body, and medial rotation, where the ankle moves across, away from the center line of the body. So we're going to try to work through all 6 of those actions today. So let me have you start today in Supta Baddha Konasana, which is reclined bound angle pose. Before we get there, let me tell you blocks. I recommend, or props rather, I recommend 2 blocks. If you don't have blocks today, that's okay. There's nothing that we're doing with blocks that you couldn't do without blocks. Over time, these are a really important prop for yoga. You could pay as much money for a yoga block if you wanted. If you wanted to find a $60 or $75 yoga block, I bet you probably could. I got this set here. I think they were $4 a piece at Marshall's or TJ Maxx. So it's a really low investment. Up to 2 blankets. 1 would be really nice. 2 would be gravy. I know you've got blankets. In a yoga bolster. Now, if you don't have a yoga bolster, again, there are a range of options that are available, but you could use like a couple of pillows. You could use couch cushions, anything to give you a little bit of padding and cushion between yourself and the earth. Now, the first shape of our practice today, Supta Baddha Konasana. Let me have you come down onto your back. Bring the pinky edge, bring the soles of your feet together. Rest the pinky edge blades of your feet down on the mat. And then if you don't have a good reason not to have blocks under your thighs or your knees, I'd really like you to place blocks there. Right, so I've changed the way that I teach in practice this. What I used to cue people for and tell them was, if you get too much sensation in your hip flexors, then place blocks under your knees. But this action with the soles of the feet together, pinky edge blades of the feet on the earth, and gravity drawing the knees down toward the earth, for a lot of bodies, that can have almost a can opener effect on the sacroiliac joint on the back. So the only time I would really recommend not having blocks on the knees, and again, this is your body and your practice, so you do what you like, but as if you're not getting the sensation that you need. All right, so job 1 is just to arrive in this shape. Notice where you're feeling sensation. Maybe notice all the sensations first. And then check in with your body and notice where those sensations are most provocative. Start to lengthen out your breath, both your inhale and your exhale. And then after 3 or 4 cycles of lengthened breath, I'm going to ask you to engage a victorious breath. The Sanskrit for this would be ujjayi. It means victorious. Now, if that's familiar to you, go ahead and roll right into that. But if that's brand new, that's okay, friends. I can cue you for that. Draw in a nice, deep, life-affirming inhale. Hold it at the top. And then as you exhale through your nose, but with the same quality as if you were standing in front of a mirror fogging with the breath. Right? Notice, listen for that ocean wave sound. Feel for that light constriction at the base of your throat. Now, maintain that constriction at the base of your throat as you inhale. Same audible quality, same texture. So the goal will be maintain this breath pattern for about the next 30 minutes. You will lose the breath over time. When that happens, know first and foremost, that's natural, friends. It happens to everybody. And once you've noticed you've lost the breath, come back to it. All right, now take your hands to the outside edges of your thighs. Draw your knees in together into center. And then I'd like you to take 2 of your blocks. When I ask you to lift up, I'd like you to place your blocks at the lowest height where the seam of those blocks is right in the center of your low back. Again, if you don't have the blocks, don't worry about it. For today, do this practice without the blocks. But if you have the blocks, lift up, provided that this is pain-free. Now, for my body, this creates a really favorable angle that my body likes. But if for whatever reason your body doesn't like that, we don't live in the same body, that's fine. Just remove the blocks. Now, right knee towards your right shoulder. So what have we got here? Hip flexion. Interlace both hands on your right shin. And gently but firmly draw that right knee in towards your right shoulder. Right, now you can leave the sole of your left foot right there on the mat. That might be nice support for your lower back. You also have the option to lengthen that left leg long. Right, on your next inhale, draw your right knee any amount closer to your right shoulder. And then as you exhale, press your shins into your hands. Take all the slack out of your arms like an archer loading the bow. And then inhale, right knee to right shoulder. Exhale, load the bow. And flow through this about 3 more times to the cadence of your own breath. Right, after about 5 full rounds of that, come back to stillness. Release your right shin. Straighten the right leg. I like the sole of your right foot parallel to the earth, but note, you might have a generous bend in that right knee. You could park a bus behind my right knee. It's fine. No problem. Interlace your hands on the back of your right thigh. And then draw your knee maybe any amount closer down towards your nose. I'd like you to tee your left arm out to the side, but right hand stays behind that right thigh supporting. Start to lower the pinky edge blade of your right foot out to the side. When you get to the point where the left hip starts to lift up, that's probably far enough. What do we have here? This is basically hip AB abduction. Right, on your next inhale, use the muscles in your legs with support of your right arm to draw the sole of that right foot back parallel to the ceiling. Change the support with the hands. Left hand behind the right thigh. Take the webbing between your right thumb and right index finger. Feed that webbing into your right hip crease. Now, draw your left heel across the center line of your body is you press your right hand toward that top edge of your mat, so diagonal, forward and down at the same time. So here we have sort of a hip AD adduction. On your next inhale, draw the sole of your right foot back up to center, release your right hand, and then exhale, right knee to right shoulder. Give it a gentle little tug one more time, and then release the sole of your right foot down to the mat. Put a bend in your left leg, left knee to left shoulder. Interlace your hands on that left shin. An invitation only if it would feel good to lengthen that right leg long. Right, we're back to hip flexion in that left hip. So I'm going through a new yoga teacher training. It used to be called, it's through Yoga Body with Lucas Rockwood. Used to be called Gravity Yoga, but they've recently changed the name to Flexibility Coach Teacher Training. And when talking about the hips and going through, before I did this training, I did Lucas's 21-day hip opening challenge using the principles of gravity yoga. Before we go there, release that left shin, straighten the left leg, solely your left foot parallel with the ceiling. Interlace your hands anywhere on the back of that left leg. But one of the things that's become clear to me, I've made pretty big gains in my hip flexibility, but I think I'd underestimated the importance of working all 6 areas of that basic range of motion prior to doing this challenge. But thankfully, this is all just like our whole lives and our whole movement practice is about experimentation. All right, release your right hand, tee your right arm out to the side, drop the pinky edge blade of your left foot off to the side, up to the point where the right hip starts to lift up. Right, and as we experiment and learn, we can change the way that we practice. And as I do that, one of my roles and responsibilities, of course, is to change the fruits of that experimentation and learning with you. AB abduction. Right, draw the sole of your left foot back parallel with the ceiling, right hand behind the left thigh, webbing between your left thumb and left index finger, feet into your left hip crease. Now draw your left heel across the center line of your body. Press your left hand forward and down into that hip crease. AD adduction of the hip. So I had fits remembering which one exactly is abduction, which one is adduction again. And then I had a teacher tell me, so the action of drawing in toward the center, like you're adding them together, is adduction, AD adduction. And the action of drawing away from the body, like taking it away, like an alien abduction, is AB abduction. So that's creepy, but it's worked out to be a really great way to remember that. Inhale, solely your left foot up parallel to the ceiling. Exhale, left knee to left shoulder. Give it one last little gentle tug. And then release both feet down to the earth. Lift up. If you've got blocks, remove your blocks. And then use good body mechanics to come into tabletop. So for some bodies, if you can do it with good body mechanics, that might look like rocking from head to heel. But if not, that's okay. Roll off onto a side, hands under your shoulders, and then press yourself up. We're going to start with cat rolling. So on an inhale breath, drop your belly down toward the earth. Elbows, hands, shoulder width apart. Lift your gaze, open your heart. Exhale, press into your hands, press into your shins, round through your shoulder blades. Inhale, drop your belly, open your heart. And I'd like you to really lean into this pulling movement at the bottom of this movement, like you were trying to drag the heels of your hands back to touch your knees. Exhale, round through your shoulders. And if you would, do 4 more of these to the cadence of your own breath. All right, friends, after 6 full rounds, come to a neutral spine position. Shift your left knee to the center of your mat, and then lengthen your right leg long. So I would like your toes turned down, so a closed hip, toes are facing the earth. Press firmly through the heel of that right foot like you were stomping on the wall behind you. And rather, it's possible to open the hip and lift it much higher up, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more or less level hips here. And once you feel stable and grounded, start to lengthen your left arm long so that the thumb of your left hand is reaching for the stars, the pinky of your right hand is reaching for the earth. Now, really lengthen out here, create even more space and length between the tips of your fingers on your left hand and your right heel. Right, that's good, you guys. Now you stay right there. I'm going to change my position just for demonstration purposes for where we're going next. I think this will be easier to see. All right, now lower your left hand, your right knee just taps down to the earth, and then right away engage your right glute. Open your right leg out to the side. So toes on that right foot are alive. Flex the toes on your right foot back towards your right knee. So what have we got here? Hip AB abduction. Lower that right knee down to the earth. And once again, you guys stay where you are. I'm going to change sides for demonstration purposes. Shift your right knee to the center of your mat. Lengthen your left leg behind you long. So once again, closed hip. Once you're stable and grounded, reach your right arm out long as well. Engage your core. That might feel like an action of gently drawing the belly button towards your spine. But I'd like you to make some shifts and adjustments, feeling for stability and security in your core. Inhale. Exhale, tap your right hand, your left knee down to the earth, and then right away engage your left glute, open your left hip out to the side. I'm just going to change positions again for demo purposes. All right, so once again, you could open the hip up more and really lift that leg long, but that's not what I'm interested in for you here. I'm more interested in seeing you have closed hips. Right, as we start to move closer to sun salutations, we're going to start with classical sun salutations with a low lunge. A little more work to do before we get there. Start to lower your left knee down. I'm going to change positions again. From tabletop, our quadruped position like a child crawling. On an inhale, tuck your toes under your feet. Exhale, press your hips up and back. Find the first down dog of our practice today. And right away, the movement that warms your lower body, find that movement. For me today, it's going to look like pedaling out the feet. But I'd like you to look for a soft, supple shape for your neck. Maybe like a sensation of a giant weight attached, not a giant weight, but a weight attached to the crown of your head, drawing the crown of your head down toward the earth. Stillness in your lower body, let gravity drape your heels down toward the earth, but a bend in the knees is fine. If you look at my knees, once again, you could park a bus behind my knees, and it's still a pretty good down dog. Flatten your palms out on the mat. Press especially into your index knuckle and thumb. Relax your neck again. And then on an inhale, bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, take as many steps as you need. Come up to the top edge of your mat in Ragdoll, Uttanasana. Feet up to hip distance apart, whole belly resting on your thighs. Maybe grab opposite elbows, but relax your neck. Now, I'd like you to shift the weight more into the balls of your feet and put enough of a bend in your knees, the whole belly rests on the thighs. For most bodies, that's going to require a generous bend in the knees. And for the first halfway lift that we do, I would love it if you would try it with the same bend in your knees. So release your hands down to the earth. Heel toe your feet together. Knees are still fairly bent. Shift the weight into your heels. Place your hands on your shins, halfway lift. Long, straight spinal column, but a bend in the knees is just fine. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, press down into your feet. Sweep your arms all the way up over your head. Exhale, hands to heart center. Take a soft gaze at the tips of your fingers. Set an intention for your practice for today. On an inhale, sweep your arms all the way up over your head. Exhale, hinge into a forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale, step back into a high push-up position, high plank. And we're going to stay here for about 3 breaths. So I would like you to engage your core again, to puff the space between your shoulder blades up toward the stars. And there's a very human tendency here to release the forehead down toward the earth. Rather than do that, I'd like you to keep the back of the head buoyant. Inhale right here. Exhale gently, at least this first time. Tap your knees down to the earth. Hands and elbows stay shoulder width apart. Lower all the way down to your belly. And then on an inhale, open your heart. So this might look like easy cobra, hands under the shoulders, pulling with the hands, peeling the heart up off the earth, pressing the shoelace parts of your feet down into the earth. And then on an exhale, lower your heart down to the earth, downward facing dog. Bend your knees, look forward, and then walk or step to the top edge of your mat. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, press down into your feet and rise. So we missed the classical sun the first time around, so I'll try to make up for it here. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale, step your left leg back. Tap that left knee down. Low lunge. You can tuck the toes on your left foot back under it or press the shoelace parts of your feet into the earth. Hands might be on your mat. They could be on blocks. Your hands might be on that front thigh. But I'd like you to engage that left glute, which might involve pressing your left leg more firmly down into the earth. And release your hips any amount forward toward that right heel. Now, if you find that knee coming forward of the right ankle, we're not under load. I'm not super concerned, but it's a good practice. Walk that right foot forward. And check in, notice, are you holding on to muscular engagement someplace now where you don't need it? And could you choose to let that go? Inhale. Exhale, release your hands down to the earth. Step your right leg back to meet your left in high plank. Inhale in your high plank. On an exhale, knees up or down, lower down to your belly. Inhale, open your heart. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale, step your left leg forward. Tap the right knee down, low lunge. So start with a foundationally solid low lunge. Build this pose from the ground up. Right toes on that right foot could be tucked. You could press the top of the foot down, but right leg is engaging with the earth. Right glute is engaged. Hips maybe release any amount closer down toward that left heel. These first 2 low lunges, we're going to stay 5 breaths apiece, and then we'll start to speed things up a bit. The transition from here will be to a forward fold. So when we do that, your hands could come down to the mat, or you could just leave them at heart center. I have no preference. This first time I'm going to do it with the hands coming down to the earth, but I'll change it the next time. Inhale. Exhale. Maybe release your hands down to the earth. Step your right leg forward to meet your left in a forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, press down into your feet, rise. Come all the way up to standing. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale, step your right leg back, tap that right knee down, low lunge, 1 breath. This time I'm going to choose to sweep my arms up overhead as my hips come forward. Exhale, high plank. Inhale in high plank. Exhale, lower down to your belly. Inhale, open your heart. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale. Exhale, step your right leg forward. Tap the left knee down, low lunge, rise on your inhale. Exhale, forward fold at the top edge of your mat. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sit back into chair pose. Now, this might be a higher chair or it could be a lower chair, but I'd like to weight into your heels. So press your shins toward the back edge of your mat. Now, long, straight spine, but as long as it's straight, your hands could be here on the thighs. That might be nice support for the low back. Hands could be a heart center. Or your fingertips could reach for the stars, biceps framing the ears. But I'd like you to experiment with the position of the pelvis. Find something that feels stable and secure in your body. In my body, the action of drawing belly button toward the sternum feels really, really stable. It feels great. Your body may be different, and that's okay. Inhale. Exhale, find a forward fold. Inhale for a halfway lift. I'm going to change my position just for demonstration purposes. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, step back into high plank. Inhale, rock forward on your toes. Put your shoulders over your wrists. As you exhale, knees up or down, come halfway down. Back of the head stays buoyant. Inhale, open your heart. This time I'm going to choose upward facing dog. Shoulders floating over my wrist, shoelace parts of my feet pressing into the earth. Exhale, downward facing dog. On an inhale, lift your right heel up toward the stars. Exhale, step it forward, tap the left knee down, low lunge, Anjaneyasana. Right, so to start with excellent posture. Head floats over shoulders, over hips. Inhale. And then as you exhale, engage the left glute. Release the hips any amount closer down toward that right heel. Inhale, lift back up in the center. Exhale, release the hips any amount forward. Inhale, come back up into center. Exhale, release the hips forward. Now interlace both hands on the front of that right thigh. And as you engage the left glute, use a traction effect. Traction that right knee forward toward the top edge of your mat. Continue to breathe. I'm going to change my position just for demonstration purposes. You guys stay right here. You're doing great. All right, on your next inhale, release the hands, come back up, the head floats over shoulders, over hips. Bring the right hand down to the mat or to a block, close to the, like just inside from the right hand edge of your mat, left hand on your left thigh. Inhale, find length along the spinal column. Exhale, press into your left hand. Rotate your heart to your left. Gently track your hips back to the right. And you could stay right here. Or inhale, release slightly out of the twist. Exhale, re-engage, press more firmly into the left hand. We're just trying to loosen up connective tissues in the low back and hips. And I'm going to change my position one more time for demo purposes. You guys stay here. All right, come back into stillness. If your right hand's on a block, release it down to the mat. 2 to 3 inches forward to that right shoulder. Now step your left hip back, modified side plank. Now invitation to sickle that right heel over past the right hand edge of your mat. Imaginary wall behind your head and shoulders. Press the back of your heart into that wall. Maybe float the fingers up toward the stars. It's not wrong to keep them on your hip the whole time. Now that left foot, I'd like you to press firmly through the heel of the left foot. Cant the toes down toward the earth or to the horizon line or below. And on your next inhale, lead with the heel, lift your left leg. Continue to breathe. Inhale. Exhale, release your left foot, left hand down to the earth. Modified high plank. Inhale, a modified high plank. Exhale, modified low plank. Inhale, any heart opener of your choice. Exhale, downward facing dog. On an inhale, lift your left heel up toward the stars. Exhale, step it forward, tap your right knee down, low lunge. Just like the other side, let's set this up well as a low lunge first. So build it from the ground up. Right leg presses into the earth, right glute is engaged. Head floats over shoulders, over hips to start. And then on your next exhale, release your hips any amount forward. Inhale, come back up the center. For now, I have left hand on my left thigh, right hand covers the back of my left hand. Exhale, release your hips any amount forward. Inhale, lift back up into center. Exhale, release forward. Interlace both hands, place them on the top of that left thigh. Engage your right glute rather. Track your left knee forward. And I may have cued you guys wrong, so hopefully you're doing the opposite side from what you did before. That was my mistake, not yours. Inhale, come back up to center. Exhale, left hand down to the mat or to a block, right hand on your right thigh. Inhale, find length along your spinal column. Exhale, open your heart up to the right, hips over to the left. And stay right here or cycle to the cadence of your own breath. So that may have created an awkward transition for you. But as long as you do each side, it's all good, friends. Come back to stillness. If that left hand's on a block, remove the block. Right hand 2 to 3 inches in front of the left shoulder on the mat. Left hand 2 to 3 inches in front. Step that right hip back. Modified side plank. Right, any version. Lift your hips up another 2 to 3 inches. And then press through the heel of that right foot. Cant the toes down toward the earth. On your next inhale, lead with the heel. Lift the right leg and breathe. So what do we have here? Hip AB abduction. Inhale. Exhale, release your right foot, right hand down to the mat. Modified high plank. From modified high plank, you can lower all the way down to your belly. Find any resting positions on your belly. You could do a belly shavasana. Another nice option is half frog. So with half frog, what you do is goalpost the arms out to the side, elbows roughly in line with the shoulders, fingertips pointing up past the direction of the top edge of your mat. Rest your left cheek on the mat. Lift your right knee in the general direction of your right elbow. Now that right knee doesn't have to touch the left elbow. It doesn't have to be close, just in that general direction. You guys stay right here. So we're going to start the transition from the vinyasa portion of our practice to the yin portion. So a couple of the changes that you should be able to expect. First of all, that ujjayi breath that served you so well for the first half of the practice, if you chose to maintain it here, it wouldn't hurt a thing. I find sometimes it can be a really nice focal point for the attention. However, there's no special breath required, so just a comfortable, natural breath will be just fine. And also, you will notice, like during the vinyasa portion, because we're moving, this wasn't a fast practice, but because in general, we're moving fairly quickly through dynamic shapes, we give a lot of cues for which muscles to engage and disengage. So they're fairly anal retentive. Flex your toes back towards your face. Press through the heel of your left foot, right? Because we're moving, and because we're moving quickly, a failure to engage could lead to an injury. So sometimes when people get into the yin pose, the cueing seems a little bit loosey-goosey, right? But the goal is really different. These are static poses. We're not moving quickly. And that same kind of muscular engagement that's critically important to protect ourselves while we're moving, in the yin practice becomes counterproductive to our goal of allowing time and gravity to draw our connective tissues down toward the earth. All right, friends, from your resting shape, we're going to transition to our first yin shape. So one thing you could do, this is not compulsory, it's what I like, it may not be what you like, but I like a little padding between my body and the earth. So if you took a half folded blanket and laid it out so that the long edge of the half folded blanket is perpendicular to the long edge of the mat, that for me works really well, especially for this next pose. And then I recommend a bolster here or a couch cushion. And start out in a quadruped position. So tabletop, like a child crawling, right? So shoulders floating over your wrists again, hips floating over your knees. The bolster or the couch cushion, about a third of that will be between your wrists and your body, and the rest will be above. Now with the legs, first of all, turn the toes out. And then start to take the knees out wide. As you walk the knees out, walk the ankles out in line with the knees. And I'm going to show you this from another angle in a moment. And then once you've got all the sensation you could possibly want in those hips, AD adductors, right? Notice we want hips floating over the knees. So the human tendency is the hips want to come forward toward the earth, which reduces the sensation. So press them back out over the hips and then release your torso down onto your bolster. I'm going to show you guys, stay right there. I'm going to show this from another angle. So from tabletop, feet turn to the outside. Knees start to widen out. And then once I've got that right shape, I check and confirm from side to side, my hips or knees are in one plane. And then lower your heart down to the bolster. To rest the cheek on the bolster. Now, sometimes you'll see this, you see this in frog and vinyasa a lot. People do this as a forearm plank. Okay, it's not wrong. It's not wrong, but it depends on what you're optimizing for. So if you're optimizing for core work, like this held for long enough, it might be a nice way to develop a six-pack. But I don't care about six-pack abs in my body or yours, because I know they're not a good indicator of health, overall health. I would much rather see you lengthen out the front plane of your body from your pubic bone to your throat by releasing your chest and your torso down into your bolster. Right, so we're looking to straddle a threshold here between discomfort and pain. So on a scale of sensation from 0 to 10, where at 0 we felt nothing, and 10 would be excruciating, you'd be compelled to move. Choose a level that's at least a 4 to a 6. In each pose, I'll give you some options to add sensation, only if your body's opened up some space. Right, so we're at that point now. Check in, and you may already have all the sensation you could possibly want. Right, but some options, you could take your knees out wider. You could also remove the bolster and lower your heart closer down toward the earth. I'm at the top of the 6 range right now, so I'm not going to change anything, but these are all options. You guys stay right here. I'm going to change positions for this pose one more time so I can show you what I found to be the most graceful way to come out of this when we finish. As we start to come out of this, rather than muscling out, if you would, draw the crown of your head forward, feel your hips start to lower down toward the earth, and then you can walk the knees back behind you. And then grab your bolster again. Set yourself up, sit down onto your right hip, close to the top edge of your mat. Right hip, the right shin rather, is parallel to the top edge of your mat. Right, so we have, in this hip, we have lateral hip rotation. Now put a big generous bend in your left knee and place your whole left shin parallel to the left hand edge of your mat. right? So we have medial hip rotation in this left hip. Now I'm going to choose here to stage a bolster off on my right side. You could also choose a bolster in front of your right shin. But for now in this shape, the first thing that we're doing, if you will buy into the idea that the goal is to let gravity draw the hips down toward the earth, we just want to apply as much weight over the hips as we can. So the goal optimally will be head floats over shoulders over hips. But you can look at my body right now and realize that my body is canting over toward the right. To help counter that and to keep the force of gravity working for us rather than against us, I'm choosing to place my right hand on my bolster for now. We get sometimes obsessed about what these poses look like. So I want to tell you straight up, I have very, very little interest in what these poses look like. Not in my body and not in yours, but I'm really interested in how they feel and where you're feeling. So everybody doing this class will be doing so through a recording. So I'm going to try to give you pretty good cues of where you might feel sensation. But if you find that you're getting it in different places, that's okay, friends. We live in different bodies, but that would be great feedback for me. So we're coming up on that point where you could choose to do something different with the sensation. But we start from a platform of knowing there's nothing wrong with where we are right now. You could stay right here with gravity drawing the hips down toward the earth in this deer pose and be doing meaningful work the whole time. Other two options, this is not what I'm going to choose, but you could fold forward over that right shin, maybe bringing your forehead down to a block. For some bodies, your whole torso might come down to the earth. That's not my experience in my body. It could be yours. Either way is great. You could also walk both hands over to the right, and I'm going to take this as a twisted deer, and then lower the torso down onto your bolster. So for people with chronic lower back pain, this is one of the yin poses that I really like because it really lengthens and stretches out and gives a really mild twist into the side planes of the body. In particular, there's a triangular shaped muscle on either side of the low back, the quadratus lumborum, that sometimes it gets really engaged on one side and under engaged on the other side, and the body doesn't like that, and so it can be almost a debilitating pain. So this will twist that QL muscle in opposite directions on either side of the lower back. And of course, when we head over to the other side, we'll try to add a little bit of symmetry and even that out and twist both of those QLs in their opposing directions. All right, friends, start to lift yourself up out of this shape. Use good body mechanics. So for me, that's going to look like hands under the shoulders, lifting up. In the most gentle way I found to come out of this, if you draw your left knee forward towards your right heel, ooh, see how that creates some slack? And I can draw that left leg forward. Now we're going to change sides. So left shin parallel with the top edge of your mat. So we have lateral hip rotation in this left hip. And then put a big bend in your right knee. So your whole right shin is parallel to the right hand edge of your mat. And if you chose a regular reclining deer and you folded forward over the right shin before, you might choose to put that bolster in front of you. If you chose the twisted deer, stage that bolster off to the left, just beside your left thigh. Now, to the extent possible, and again, I don't have an idealized version of this in my body. You won't either. That's okay. Head floats somewhat over shoulders, floats somewhat over hips. And I'm going to place my left hand on the bolster to help support myself here. Right, so I mentioned lateral rotation of this left hip, medial rotation of the right. All right, friends, check in with your body. Again, there's nothing wrong with where you are. You're already doing the pose. So if you stayed here the whole time, once again, it would be meaningful, productive work the whole time. Other options: reclining deer, folding forward over that left shin, or walk both hands off to the left. This is what I'm going to choose to even out the other side. Lower your torso down onto your bolster in a twisted deer. All right, friends, start to walk your hands under your shoulders. Lift yourself up. Again, the most gentle way I found to come out of this, if you draw that right knee forward towards your left ankle, whoop, unwind the legs, and then however you want to get there, use good body mechanics, make your way onto your back. And I'm going to turn my back away from you just to beginning at demonstrating this pose, but set up like we were going to bridge, right? So feet and knees are hip distance apart. Soles of the feet are on the mat, generous bend in the knees. Now start this from a supine figure 4. Pinky edge blade of hooks on the left thigh, just above the knee. And what we're going to do is a piriformis stretch, noddless pose, right? So the common action, this will be 2 versions. It's the first one starts from right here. The left hand on the right shin will guide that right knee down towards your left shoulder. Right, so you may feel this first on the top, close to the IT band, the top of the right thigh. Right, if you want more sensation already, eagle legs, wrap your right knee over your left, walk your hips over to the right. It sounds like I'm setting you up for a supine twist, but I prefer you not twist. I'd rather you draw that right knee up like you were trying to touch yourself on the chin, and then the same action of left hand on the right shin, just below the knee, draw that right knee down towards your left shoulder. Right, so this piriformis muscle, it has a role in hip rotation, but it's primarily a stabilizer. Where we're at right now, I can feel this attaches close to the top of the femur at the lesser trochanter, but it wraps all the way into the lower back, literally under the sacrum. So at this level of sensation, I can feel that muscle almost along its whole range. So the piriformis is better known not for what it does for us, but what it sometimes does to us. There's a sizable nerve that runs under it called the sciatic nerve. And because of this is the piriformis's role as a stabilizer, most of the time or like I guess all the time with muscles, we'd like them to be on a continuum balance between stability or strength or mobility or flexibility. The piriformis is one because of its role as a stabilizer. If we had to pick, we would choose to have it more on the stability side. We don't want a whole bunch of mobility there, but it's tricky because if it gets too strong, too stable, and too immobile, sometimes it compresses that sciatic nerve and it can cause sciatica or sciatica-like symptoms, which is, if you've not experienced it before, and I hope you haven't, awful. All right, friends, you can release your right shin, lower your left foot down to the earth, unwind the legs. I'm just going to rotate a little bit, starting off from this bridge setup, generous bend in the knees, soles of the feet on the earth. Hook the pinky edge blade of your left foot on the outside of your right thigh. Again, either version, you can do this from a supine figure four where we are here, or eagle legs with left knee wrapped over right. But common factor will be right hand on the left shin just below the knee. Draw that left knee down towards your right shoulder. So I'm going to choose this from eagle legs, friends, but you choose the version of this that's best for you. And I have taught this and practiced this with feet relaxed and feet flexed. And the truth is, in this particular shape, I noticed no difference. But especially given that we're doing this as a yin pose, I would encourage you to relax the feet. So Tomasic, a disengaged quality of energy in the feet. All right, friends, release your right shin, lower your left foot down to the earth, unwind your legs, and set up into any final resting shape. Right. So this could be anything. But what I would want you to know, there's not a law that says your final resting shape has to be on your back, feet mat width apart, hands down by your waist, palms facing the sky. Right. That's one of many choices. It could be on your seat, your belly, your back, or your side. But I'm going to ask you to find a final resting shape that allows you to balance two qualities. The first is relaxation, and the second is alertness. So for me today, the final resting shape is going to look like a restorative bridge. So if you did that, feet and knees hip distance apart, press down into the feet, and you could place one block under the low back and sacrum at the lowest height, or if you wanted even more lift, you could place a second block there. And I'm going to choose hands, palms facing down on the bottom of the rib cage because it allows me to relax the shoulders. But even from this position, there's a whole wide range of options available. You could tee your arms out to the side. You can have them down by your waist, over your head. Sometimes I even take this, lengthening the legs out long and reaching the arms up over my head. Any final resting shape. All right, friends, if your body wants more rest, know that you could ignore every other cue that I offer and close out the practice exactly as you are with no changes. That's always an option that's available to you. Another option is to start to introduce some movement slowly. So if your body's calling for that, you might start with a breath, drawing in some deeper breaths, feeling the life force energy, the prana in this breath, bringing your body back to life after this time you've taken to rest. And if that movement was pleasing, you could begin to reanimate your body with other small movements, maybe wiggling your fingers or wiggling your toes. You might choose to gently draw your chin from shoulder to shoulder. And then if your body wants more, invitation to go larger at any time, maybe rotating your hands at the wrists, your feet at the ankles. You could also take a full body stretch. And then if you're closing out the practice in your final resting shape, you're already home. You don't have to change a thing. For everyone else, if you would, roll over onto either side into a fetal position. And check in with your body. Notice how you're feeling. The state of the body first. In particular, the area of your hips and around your hips, the hip complex. Were you able to open up and create some space for yourself in the work that you did? And then check in with the quality of your mental state. Were you able to open up and create some space for yourself? Check in with the quality of your emotional state. Were you able to create some space and open some things up for yourself there a little bit? And if the answer to any of these or all of these questions is no, that's okay. It's just skillful to notice that. Then roll over onto either side. Press yourself up into a seated position with your legs crossed, eyes open or closed. And if you would, place one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Thank you, friends, for allowing me to guide you through your practice today. May this practice strengthen and support your body, your mind, and your spirit. May this practice bolster and support your body, your mind, and your spirit. And that concludes our practice for today. Thank you, friends. My name is Chris. Again, I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness, and this was a hip complex class. And just as a reminder, the 6 basic movements of the hip, we worked on hip flexion, we worked on hip extension, we worked on hip adduction, drawing into the middle, hip abduction. We also worked on lateral rotation and medial rotation. Hope to practice with you again sometime soon, friends.